welcome to the Prince Magnum channel, where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome to Elephant Rocks, and this particular segment is going to fit right into a series that we do not do enough, a look into our past. Now, Elephant Rocks is an old granite quarry that is actually, believe it or not, smack dab in the middle of Missouri. And it's actually near where I did a lot of growing up, which is one of the reasons why I know of its existence. We'll get to all of that later. But there's actually some really neat stuff out here, a lot of history to take in, and we did a video kind of like this long time ago on the channel, but it wasn't that good. So we're back to do a much better job than we did way back when, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and you guys are going to learn some really neat stuff. But at the same time, we're also going to take a look at an actual war monument that has been around for over 100 years and is in danger of being lost to history. We'll get to that also a little bit later in the video. But in the meantime, where I'm currently standing right now is kind of like the visitor center, if you will. If I can get my camera person to kind of shine over here. Right over here, it actually talks about some of the Native Americans that were around, like in the Ohio River Valley and in somewhere, and basically Missouri and places like that. Of course, the Welcome to Arcadia stuff, so the maps from around that time, and of course some of the usual pictures. As a matter of fact, Pilot Knob Mountain. Pilot Knob Mountain actually got its name because we're talking map makers around the 17 and 1800s were mapping the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. Well, at a certain point, they're trying to make landmarks to make their maps accurate, and the one that they could easily use was Pilot Knob Mountain. Now, that's all the way from, the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, so it was that big. That mountain was that big. Now, why is it not that big anymore? Well, we'll get to that in a second. But how it got its name, Pilot Knob, is because they could see it, and these are map makers traveling these rivers, so they were called pilots. They were traveling these rivers in boats, making these maps, so hence the name, Pilot Knob, which there is a Pilot Knob town, and I actually used to live there. That's the town I was living in when I graduated high school, so it's been a minute. So the reason why the mountain is not that big anymore, they discovered iron in that mountain, and that iron was then mined. And by the way, the county that I'm in is actually called Iron County for that reason. And the town where the big courthouse is, big by standards back then, was built in the 1800s. Believe it or not, that courthouse is in a town called Ironton. So there you have that, a little bit of tidbit information. Now over here it talks about how the granite was quarried. Of course, a lot of black and white pictures. Sorry, color wasn't invented for pictures yet. And they even talk about how they drilled into the granite. And these were really neat. Basically, you had these square pegs, and we'll actually see there's actually a spot on the trail that we're going to be hitting that'll actually show these pegs and how they used it to split the granite. Which the trail that we're going to be on today is called the Braille Trail, which is really neat. And of course, the different types of hammers, and of course, pickaxes that were used at the time. For those of you who love Minecraft, yeah, these are real pickaxes that these guys used, that the quarry workers used. Now over here again, it kind of gives some more map information, and of course a little bit more modern map. Over here, Tom Sauk, St. Joe State Park, and of course St. Francis State Park, Hahn State Park, and places like that. Currently, we are right here on the map. Okay, and for those of you who like Steelville for all of its nice little camping resorts, there it is on the map. Okay, now over here it'll give some geological formation stuff, and of course for those of you who are into geology, why we have granite in this area, something about volcanic rock, that's the best I know. I'm sorry, I'm not a geologist. So that's one of the reasons why. Now, really quick, for those of you who don't know, the section that we're going to be in, which is Elephant Rock State Park, is the old granite quarry. But in behind it, there's a whole different granite quarry that they still continue to mine granite. Matter of fact, if you wanted to, you can even go there and buy small gravel-sized granite for paving your for putting gravel in your driveway, so you can have granite gravel for your driveway. So, for those of you who did not know that. Over here, of course, more black and whites, along with some really interesting. I'll go ahead and kind of let my camera person kind of freeze on this little bit of information, and we'll keep it up there for just a few moments for you guys. And if you feel like you need more time, go ahead and pause the video right here. And that'll help you out with your historical information about where some of the granite was actually used. Okay, there you go. And of course, again, the Anheuser Brewery office building where some of the granite was used. Over here, U.S. Customs House and Post Office. Some of the granite was used there. Missouri Governor's Mansion, St. Louis City Hall, and the East Bridge levee piers. And that's just some of the places. I believe, if I remember hearing correctly, a lot of the granite was used just all over the country. So then, of course, over here, of course, some more wonderful black and white pictures, and of course, some of the pictures of some of the quarry workers that were here, during that time. So, if you find all that interesting, currently, really quick, they do have a donation box over here, and we're going to kind of touch base on this a little bit later in the video. But for right now, just know that it does exist. Okay. Alrighty. So from here, we're going to be tackling some hot spots here on the Braille Trail. Now, the Braille Trail, for those of you who are not familiar with Elephant Rocks, for those of us with sight, we have regular English here to work with, but down here, for those that are blind, which is why we have the Braille Trail, they can still come out here and take in as much of the history if they can read Braille. So, for those that are blind. So, as a matter of fact, they even have the maps here, so they know exactly where they're standing, that they're near a placard, and all they have to do is find that placard and read what it is that's actually right here for those of us that can see. So, if you find that interesting. Alrighty, so let's hit the Braille Trail and hit up some hot spots. Sorry, I had to strike a pose, but this little rest stop is actually, this has been here a long time, and of course, this is typical of your granite construction that you see from way back when, but because it's in a state park, we don't see a whole lot of, it's not brightened a whole lot, but granite construction like this, using rocks like basically this type of granite rock, I mean, honestly, it's really neat to look at. It's really neat to look at. One of the things I love about granite, using granite in architecture, is to tell you how much of a nerd I am when it comes to buildings, because of the crystal quartz you sometimes get in the rocks. For those, again, who study geology, you guys will be able to talk about this a whole lot better than me, but just thought you guys would like to see that, and of course, the Gable emoji would be kind of goofy. Alright, folks, this is one of these sad things that happens in some of these state parks. Things like this. This actually used to be a drinking fountain. You be coming through the Braille Trail, and you come up on a fountain like this, and you can get a quick drink, and just keep on hard charging it through. As a matter of fact, this has actually been here. I actually remember this the first time I came up here with the Cub Scouts. When I was in like the second grade. I was like 6 years old, and which that has a funny story in itself. But this water fountain has not been kept up with. You can go out to the front area and buy soft drinks from vending machines. You see where this is going. Folks, honestly and truthfully, they really need to put this back in here because if they're buying soft drink bottles and things like that, there's a lot of nature out here that does not need, you know as well, everyone knows it, litter bugs, okay? People that are just going to throw their trash wherever out here on these trails, and of course the wildlife, you know. Let's start thinking green for real, all right? So, into lecture. All right, folks, had to take a stop real quick. Back at the visitor center, they were talking about the chisels and the way they used to split these granite rocks. Here at the quarry, you can actually see where the chisel went down and basically cracked it along the fault here and here as well. And there would have been several of these all along these rocks. So if you find that interesting, and there's a spot on the trail where we'll actually see where the actual pins that they used, basically the pin chisels that split the rock, just like you're seeing right here, and we'll actually be able to see those here in a little bit. And these were guys that were doing it when they did this. It was all the way back in, you know, the 1800s and early 1900s. So there wasn't a whole lot in the way of like some of the stuff we would see today. So these were hardy men back then who had to do this sort of stuff with not a whole lot of mechanized tools out in this area. So just thought you guys would love to see that as we continue, I guess you could say, this very interesting and historical video. All right, folks. This is a spot that, you know, due to the way we're going to be filming this, and depends on where this segment's going to be, but this is an important one for the purposes of history. Now, on this placard right here, which we can thank, see if, we'll get to this in a second, but we can thank the VFW post 5741 for this placard, because behind me is a monument that was done over 100 years ago as the filming of this video that we are on the brink of losing, okay? Something's obviously got to be done, and of course, I myself, I have a million ideas, but if we don't do something to preserve this monument, we're probably going to lose it for all time. But, really quick, I'll go ahead and read the placard. Behind you is a short gravel trail that leads to a chiseled memorial in the rocks. Made in the aftermath of World War I, it reads, "In honor of our nation's brave that sleep over the wave, they died that we be free, no more war to be, 1918. And of course, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Leadington Post, number 5741, donated the funds for the sign. This was not paid for by the state in a state park. So this should already begin to tell you guys why we're bringing attention to this, all right? And of course, down here is the actual braille for our people who are blind. But if I can get my camera person to go ahead and follow me up this trail. And most people don't even know about this monument, this little memorial. But currently, right over here, as you can tell, there is not much left of this little memorial for the World War I soldiers from right here in the United States. Erosion has nearly taken this completely away. You could still barely make out 1918 right here. Now, obviously, the best course of action is to have actual people that do modern, you know, monument restoration and that sort of thing come in and completely carve this out, and then, of course, restore the monument as it was meant to be from when the quarry workers first inscribed this, and then preserve it right here at Elephant Rocks. They can easily put it behind glass, plastic, whatever, and keep it away from the elements. But thus far, I don't believe there's any effort whatsoever in attempting to preserve this memorial. So, for a memorial that was done for our world, for men that fought in the First World War, this is about to fade into history. And currently, as the making of this video, it's now 2022. This monument is actually over 100 years old. So I wanted to bring attention to everyone that this is one of those pieces of history that's about to fade into history. So, all right, let's carry on with the video. All right, you guys are going to love this, okay? One of these neat little placards. It has to do with a rock that we're kind of right next. So just kind of bear with me. It's like it's a rock, Prince Magnum. Trust me, it's okay. I got this. All right. In the boulder behind you, there are two large holes located about 4.5 feet above the ground. These holes are the result of core samples which were drilled from the rock to determine their mineral quality and economical value. The sample analysis showed that the best use of the granite rock was for building material, which was quarried from the local area in the mid-1800s. And then right over here are the two holes from the core samples, which we are not about to stick our hands down in, because I'm sure there's all sorts of creepy crawly things that might take my hand off. It'll look like that scene from the movie Flash. Alrighty, so thought you guys would get a big kick out of that. Literally, from core samples that were done back in the 1800s to determine what these rocks were best used for, if you find that interesting. So let's carry on. Alright folks, we're in a really neat spot. Obviously the view behind me is absolutely amazing, right through this little area here. It's beautiful all through there, but there's plenty of time for all that. What I wanted you guys to really see, if you can look along the rocks here, you'll actually see names. Not just any names, names of folks that had actually worked in the quarry. Sometimes the quarry workers would like put names of like children, maybe their wife, or something to that effect. You know how you see in the movies where the guy's carving his initials along with his girlfriend's initials inside of a tree with a heart and all that. Well, you might see something like that up here occasionally. I mean, you'll see all sorts of stuff like that. Again, you'll even see dates up here, like one that's right over here, April 21st, 1876. And it's still here. You can still kind of see it, along with several other names. And you'll even see how detailed the scroll work is. Just the amount of skill. We take a lot of things for granted, and I'm standing on granite, and I say that. We take a lot of things for granted nowadays. That with power tools and things like that, the guys were doing stuff like this way back when the technology really wasn't available. So you want to talk about awesome, standing here amongst history like this, it makes you appreciate what you have today. Alright folks, this is one of the other spots that I had to definitely show you right behind me. And bear in mind, this was written in a different time, so get over yourselves. But here we go. Entering Fat Man's Squeeze, this narrow pathway formed a long vertical joint fracture in the granite bedrock. You are walking between what someday could be two separate elephant rocks, which of course it really is, pretty much for the most part. And of course, being part of the Braille Trail here, it's down here in Braille. Anyhow, alrighty. So now I'm about to go into Fat Man Squeeze. Y'all think I can make it? I hope I can make it. Anyhow. Alright folks, this is actually part of the old quarry, and I know I look like a speck on the camera, but the way the sound echoes through here, it sounds like I'm right up on top of the camera, I bet. I'll probably find out later when I go to edit, but anyhow, y'all get the general idea. It's an amazing view, and from where I'm standing, it's even more amazing. But you gotta kind of come down, never mind. Just let me tell y'all right now, I was not about to bring said camera that you guys are viewing me, seeing me on, down over here for a really awesome shot with this sort of water and being this close to the edge. You guys get the idea. But anyhow, I thought you guys would get a kick out of this. This is actually part of the old quarry. And of course, obviously, it's built up to a really nice lake. And of course, there's all sorts of wildlife in here. And but you guys just had to see this. What an amazing shot. All right, folks, here's another one of those really cool stops. And we kind of talked about this in the early stages of this video. We're talking, at the time they were, quarrying this granite. There wasn't a whole lot in the way of power tools like we would think about today. So right here is actually one of the metal pins that they use, still embedded in the rock. And basically they would use these pins and use a great big hammer and pound on this thing. And as it would go in, it would basically separate. And then they would get a bunch of these, and that was how they split the rock. And you can actually see where they were doing that here in these little channels here, right, like this, and all along the rock face. There's a lot of rocks like that out here, just like this, where they actually, this is how they chiseled it open. So again, we take some of the stuff we have today for granted, and again, with modern technology, obviously this would be a cakewalk. But back then, it took very hardy men, long work days, being away from home a lot. Things that, when we, today when people complain, when I look at this, I don't want to complain as much. So just something to kind of take in, and that's one of the beauties of history. It really does make us think. Today we got it pretty easy. As you can tell, we're pretty well at the end of the video. Folks, if you kind of missed what we were all talking about, again, this is a state park right here in Missouri, the Elephant Rock State Park. At one time, it used to be a quarry where they mined granite. And they did it at a time when we didn't quite have the technology that we have today. Today we have wonderful technology that makes what makes what these guys did out here. It really looked like the Stone. It looks like the Stone Age, even though we were working with iron tools and we were in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. But the other thing that I wanted to do was draw attention, because there's a lot of history out here, and whether you're into history or not, preserving history is all of our job. Because there are moments in history, yeah, some of you would like to debate it, but in a lot of cases, whether you want to debate it or not, it's still happening. And it's our duty, so we can continue to learn about it and have healthy debates about it. It's our job to preserve it. So today we came out here to a park, a natural park that is taken care of by the state of Missouri, Um, and the and nature has basically taken back over. And of course, the beauty that surrounds us is absolutely breathtaking. If you enjoy rock climbing, things like that, a lot to do out here. And of course, again, the history. So that brings us to a good stopping point. I hope all of us learned something in this, and I hope you all had some fun, even if all you took in was some scenery. So from here, I'd like to remind you all to get over to Patreon and become a member of the High Mileage Club. $1 a month goes back into the project cars, and of course, goes into making videos like this. Well, this was a lot of fun. And of course, get over to Teespring. Check out the Teespring store. There's merchandise of all sizes and shapes for you folks to choose from. And of course, 45% of anything you buy goes back into the project cars. And of course, the big videos, again, just like you see right here. Along with that, the only thing I got to remind y'all is, get out there and work on a project. I don't care what it is. Just do something with yourselves. Remember, idle hands and a creative mind go together like oil and water. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet and do something special for them today. And as always, for every last one of you out there, if no one out there has told you that they love you today, Prince Magnum does. God bless you, and have a happy 24. Thank you.